This movie is a continuation of the last movie where we were talking about functions, and we learned how to define functions and how to call functions and how to pass some simple arguments into a function and to develop functions that can be reusable. We want to explore that a little further in this movie by looking at the arguments that we can pass and some of the other things we can do with functions. So in our last example, we created say hello to, which is something that has the ability to take a variable or an argument passed into it, word, and we passed in a string to it. Now, it should make perfect sense to you that we can also define another variable, let's say name, and make that equal to John Doe, and we can pass that variable in the same way. So we can have say hello to, and we can have then string name. Now we're passing in a variable, but a variable is just a reference to the string, and we talked about that already with variables. So this will do exactly what we'd expect. It will reuse our say hello to function, and if we save that, jump back over to our browser and try it, we'll get hello John Doe. Now that should make sense to you. If you understand variables and how those work, that shouldn't be a surprise that we can use variables in this way. When we defined say hello to, we talked about that one of the benefits of having arguments was that it made our function more flexible. We can actually make our function even more flexible if we need to. Let's define a new function here, and this one's going to be function say hello 3, and I'm just using the 3 so that we can quickly give our function a new name. And let's make this one have several arguments. We're going to have greeting and target and punctuation. Okay, and I'm going to put my curly braces. They drop to the next line. Let me just expand that so you can see it. There we go. Scroll down a little bit. And then we're going to have it echo, and we're going to echo the greeting that we send and concatenate it with a comma and a space, and concatenate that with the target, and then concatenate that without any spaces with the punctuation, and then finally we'll put in our BR tag at the end and a semicolon. The fact that it's wrapping is not significant there. I can go ahead and expand it a little more for you so you can see it. There we go. And then, if I call my new function, say hello 3, I'm going to need to have 3 things that I pass to it. Now, that's an important feature of functions, is that we always need to call them with the exact same number of arguments that we've defined them with. And if I try to do it with only, let's say, our greeting, let's say I'm going to put in hello as my greeting, and let's go ahead and put in our target, which is going to be the name variable. If I don't define that last argument, I'm going to save it, and I'm going to go back and try it. It'll come back and say missing argument 3. So it's very helpful and tells you very clearly what's wrong with it, and it even tells you what line you're working with so that you'll know exactly where to find it in your code. So I need to declare that last argument, and let's go ahead and let's make that just be an exclamation point as a string. So now I should get hello John Doe with the exclamation point, but I could also say greetings. So we'll save it, go back here, and we'll retry it, and we get greetings John Doe. Now we've made our function even more flexible by using more arguments. Now, one of the tricks to becoming a really good programmer is knowing how much flexibility you need to have in your functions. Obviously, having something that is this customized where every single part of it isn't necessarily a good thing. That might be a real pain for you. And it might be a lot better to let your function do some of the work and go ahead and make some assumptions. So that's the art of programming, is going to be figuring out exactly what needs to be flexible and what doesn't. Now, you may have noticed that I actually declared name to be equal to John Doe, but I'm passing it in to another variable, which is called target. And target is what's being used down here, not name. It's an internal variable that's internal to the function, and it has nothing to do with the name that's outside of the function. So we can pass in a variable. The function has its own variable that it uses. It might or might not have the same name. This could have been called name just the same, and it still would have worked just fine. It doesn't have to match. It doesn't matter if it does. Let's take a look at something besides a hello world example. I'm going to go ahead and make a BR tag, and then we'll start a new block of PHP down here that we can work with. And I'll go ahead and scroll down a little bit so you can see that. I'll even put in a few extra spaces so we can get that up in the middle of the screen. Now, let's define another function, and let's call this function addition. And addition is going to simply add two numbers together. So we're going to have value 1, and we're going to have value 2. So we know how to add two values together. That's easy enough. Let's say sum equals to value 1 and value 2. Okay? Now, sum wasn't a variable that existed outside of the function. It wasn't an argument that was passed into the function. It is being declared inside the function, and it's going to be used by the function. It exists so the function can use it. Let's go ahead and do an addition. Let's say echo back the addition of 3, 4. And then let's put our semicolon at the end. We'll save it. And we didn't get anything back. Now, why is that? It's because we didn't actually echo it inside the function. We did that before, up here. We were using echo inside our function. Instead, we just assigned the value to sum. So the function did that. But it didn't send a value back out of the function that we could echo. And that's called returning values. And that's what we're going to look at in the very next movie, is how to return values back out of our function so we can use them once the function has finished execution.